I heard the absolute best piece of advice the other day, and it was an email from a founder of a company that I work with. And man, it was exactly what I needed to hear, and I knew I needed to pass it on to you. And the advice was title of this episode, Be Where Your Feet Are. Now, that's one of those pieces of advice that initially doesn't make sense, because let's think about that from a physical plane. You can only be where your feet are. But let's go to the mind component. How many times have you been fantasizing or thinking about or just daydreaming miles into the future, or the other way, miles into the past? In those moments, you are not where your feet are. Or I can tell you, well, I can't tell you because there's way too many times to count. Many times as an entrepreneur trying to build this business, build it into something that can sustain my family, I can tell you I get way caught up in the future, way caught up on sales, different things, followers, Instagram, you name it. I'm all in on the future and just thinking like, oh my gosh, that sounds so stressful. Or like, I just can't wait to get there because then everything's going to be good when it gets there. But you know what I'm not telling myself when I'm thinking like that? That my feet are still right here. That where my feet are is the only area of influence that I actually have right now. And so today, really just focus on your circle of influence from right where your feet are. Because here's the hard truth. That is the only thing you can control. Where your feet are. You can't be worried about what's going on in other parts of the country. You can't be worried about what's going on in other parts of the world. You can't be worried about what's going on in other parts of the company. All you can do is be where your feet are. Your zone of influence comes within 3 or 6 feet of where your feet are. But how many times do we really get lost on thinking about all these other things? Because it's all the other things that kind of just take us away from being present. How many times playing with your kids, and I would say I'm right in this cabin as well. How many times does your mind wander, thinking about work, thinking about an email, and you forget right here where my feet are, and maybe your butt because you're sitting down playing with your kids if they're young enough. That's the only area of influence I have right now. And how often do we lose sight of what we have within this 3-foot zone of influence? That's all we got. That's all we got today. That thought is one that is very profound because there are so many men out there running and running and running and dreaming up the biggest life and career successes they've ever had. But you know what those men usually leave behind? Family. The relationship with their wife. Because they forgot to be where their feet are. So, simple reminder today. Your zone of influence, 3 feet around you. Look at where your feet are. Look at what you can influence from where you are. And focus there. Because at the end of the day, it's all you got. And I'll be back again with you guys on Monday.